An Airstream's Journey, Episode 1. They are silver. They always have been. Since the early 1930s, they've been held together with rivets, thousands of them. I like the mechanical nature of them, each one having to be put in by hand, sometimes two hands, from two different people. It's the hands that I think of. So many, after almost a century, have touched these aluminum creations. Each set of hands that created them had a story, and each Airstream created makes its own story, too. I always think of the 1940s when I think of craftsmen hard at work in America. I guess it was that time period of transition, before everything was computer controlled, when we still had a hint of manufacturing capability that we've lost, for the most part. For so long, America was this monster of a manufacturing country, more productive than I guess just about anyone. The design is quite simple, actually. Aluminum sheets on the outside and aluminum sheets on the inside, built around what I call bows of a skeleton. Rivets have been around in some form as far back as 5,000 years. They helped spawn the Industrial Revolution. Skyscrapers, bridges, trains, and the greatest ships in history were riveted. Rivets are incredibly strong and, in relative terms, easy to use and readily available. The Airstream design has been basically the same since the early 1930s, and they never really wanted to yield to the modern form of the way RVs are made. Most new RVs are fiberglass bonded to very thin plywood. Fiberglass is cheap and durable and can be made to make any form needed for function and style. Modern trailers all seem to be the same, and it's rare that you can find one of the hundreds of manufacturers where in a moment's glance you know the exact maker. Airstream simply chose to keep the core product the same, and in doing so, created an icon across multiple generations that is unique and instantly recognizable. I didn't know I'd fall in love with Airstreams the way I have. It is really a surprise to me, and I think my wife is just as surprised as anyone. I think she picked up on it before I did, without question. I'd taken her down to a local Airstream dealer, a rather large one in Chicago, and they barely had any inventory. We are living through COVID pandemic right now, and everyone is buying RVs. RVs are the one thing that can allow some level of freedom for people to escape. I suspect that is the one good thing the illness has done. It's forced people together again. Families may actually be speaking to each other around a campfire or watching a sunset together. Our lives are lived in a technical, logical isolation. The modern home is filled with a family so engrossed in technology, they rarely make time to be engrossed in each other. Our favorite place is Colorado. So I had in my mind that a truck camper was the way to go. I wanted the flexibility of having a camper and at the same time the capability to pull our boat or an ATV of some sort. I felt any trailer would rob me of that, and I guess that is just as true today, but for some reason, with the Airstream, I don't feel so bad about it. It's as if all of its strengths have wiped away all of its weaknesses. Airstreams have a way of doing that. Airstreams are crazy expensive, and I thought my wife was sending us down the pauper highway of debt. Even the few used and very old ones were commanding top dollar. We went down to the dealer, and I saw the look she gets when she's excited about something. It doesn't happen often. but I know it when I see it. I saw it in her when I bought her a Jeep Wrangler, and I saw it when we picked up our dog Augie. It's hard to explain, and what she does to reveal it, except to say, you can feel it. And when you feel it, you wish you could help her feel that way forever. I had already made a couple of all-day drives to look at truck campers, and the Airstream wasn't on my list, despite my wife's excitement. I was hoping that if she saw some other things, her attention would be lost on Airstreams. But like our dog Augie, I knew in my heart she wouldn't be able to let it go. One morning, in the midst of our search, she came down and told me she had a dream that an Airstream was descending from the clouds, and she was quite serious. I figured she was playing the God card. How could I say no to that one? I couldn't decide whether it was a real God revelation or not, but I figured if it was a real God revelation, He would have to provide the miracle funds needed to birth our aluminum bundle of joy. I haven't decided whether it's a girl or a boy yet. I named some mechanical things that seem to have personality, and this purchase will certainly have a name. We have tried in vain to find one because it just has to be right. It's one of those things that you will know it's correct when you hear it. Thank God it isn't a newborn child, or it would still not have a name. It simply has to be correct. We had a number of camper deals not pan out. It was as if, and I hate to say it, some divine providence was guiding the course of this process and subsequent failures. I ended up calling a dealer in Traverse City to inquire about one that was listed, and like so many I had called on before, it was long gone. The dealer did say, "I have another coming in that the owner just bought from a lady in Florida, but I don't have any pictures," he said. "It shows well, though." He gave me his asking price on it, and it was an instant decision. The worst we could lose was a deposit, and when you see how expensive Airstreams are, losing a few $100s begins to sound like peanuts in the big picture. It was finally ready after a few weeks, and we made the long drive up there, and neither of us could believe how wonderful the condition was. I was happy, and I was so happy to see the joy in my wife's face. We bought it at Nature and Me RV, and they were wonderful to work with in every way. We stayed at Holiday Park Campground, just a couple of miles away. The park is on Silver Lake, and used to be an Airstream-only park, and it too was wonderful. Our spot was at the top of a hill, overlooking the lake and the woods. Airstreams have this wonderful 180-degree view at each end, and even when it's raining, you have a beautiful view, and we did. We had originally planned to stay one night, but ended up spending 3. I think we found peace there, and simply wanted it to last. We drove up the peninsula to Traverse Bay to the lighthouse. The water is beautiful. The hills are rolling, and there are vineyards all over the place. It would be a wonderful place to live in the summer, and the countryside felt more like New England than it did Michigan. I stopped and got out at a park on the water and watched a sailboat running. It was a catamaran with a huge rainbow sail, and it was flying at high speed. I always loved the wind in my face by the water, the silence of it, the power of it. The Airstream pulls easily and is predictable. We had high winds on our way to Lake Huron from all directions, and the Airstream didn't seem to notice, and neither did I. I have a wonderful truck to pull it, but even though that is the case, I know a bad trailer when I feel it. Lake Huron is our favorite Great Lake. Lake Huron has an unspoiled kind of trait to it. and doesn't have the large numbers of peoples and buildings that seem to crowd in on you. It's kind of a quiet place, with no major cities or even towns along its shore to speak of. The water has this rich royal blue to it, and I don't recall seeing that in others. I'm sure they are just the same, but maybe with Huron I look for it. We spent a week with some of our grandkids, knowing that it was wise to take some time to get comfortable with everything. It was so nice for us to not feel like we were intruding on their home, and that our home and bed was just a few steps away. One thing I learned was that many, many, many people love Airstreams. In my ignorance, I had no idea how much people love them and openly express it. I think that classic form simply brings out good memories for people, because in America, it seems everyone knows someone that owned one. It's much like owning a Harley Davidson. It simply has a heritage that only decades and decades of existence can create. We always had someone that wanted to see inside, like me. I don't think most people understand how good the interior design is, and especially how much glass lets in so much light. In the Airstream, with all the curtains open, you never feel isolated from the beauty that is outside. There is simply tons of light coming in, and the windows are expansive. We then set our sights on Tipton, Michigan, to see our dear friends, Brian and his wife Denise, who are pastors of a church there, and Brian was kind enough to marry us under his large oak tree years ago. We stayed at the Lutheran campground, located near a number of lakes, about 20 miles southwest of Ann Arbor. When we pulled in, I didn't realize that the majestic forest we were in was all walnut trees, with bundles of walnuts yearning to drop on our yet-to-be-named baby. Suddenly, I felt a concern that is shared by all Airstreamers, a crazy syndrome called dentophobia. Airstream owners have total situational awareness of everything that may cause it harm. Every road, tree, people, and yes, the sky becomes part of the OCD package that comes with every Airstream. Needless to say, we camped our last night under the big Michigan sky in the backyard of their church, and it was a wonderful place to end this special journey. I think God, in His grace, played a hand at the beginning when an Airstream descended from the clouds. I just hope He doesn't mind letting us use it for just a little while longer, if He doesn't need it back right away.